Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Italian Spotlight, brought to you by Spalumbo's. My guest today is Marco Civitarese, who is owner of Dolci di Delia. Thanks for joining us today, Marco.
Thank you, Mario, and thanks. I got to start with thanking Spolumbos for sponsoring me here today. Thanks so much.
All right, super. And hopefully I didn't butcher your last name there.
Good job. You did well. Thank you.
Tell me about Dolci di Delia and what you do.
Well, Dolci di Delia is a bit of an homage to my mother, Delia. Her real name is Adolorata here. When she came to Canada in 1951, people shortened the form, called her Delia. It's a lot easier than Adolorata, but it's really an homage to my mom. The inspiration, of course, behind it is some of her baking and cooking and all the relationships she formed around the baking and cooking that was part of her life for many, many years once she came to Canada.
Okay.
The friends and family, of course, spurred that along, and lots of numerous community members as well. So it's been a big effort for me, and it's my retirement project.
And what do you get? What do you do?
So right now I'm retired, and so I started this about a year ago. It's almost exactly a year, actually. Yeah. And so I make Italian regional. I started with the regional Italian cookies from Abruzzo. My mother's from that region. My mother and father came to Canada. My dad came first, 1950. My mother came a little later in 1951. And so with her, one of the traditional cookies, of course, was the pizzelle, the ferratelli. And so those cookies are well known through all of Italy, but in that region specific, and every region has their little nuances of how they make their cookies. But in essence, that was the start and the love of my cookie life. That was her basic cookie, and then she has numerous other cookies that she made, of course, for every baptism, wedding, anything celebration that was going on. She was bringing cookies and making people happy.
So, did you start as a kid baking?
No, I started. I mean, later. I mean, it'd be very rare that I got to get into the kitchen with my mom. I bought my mom her first mix master, like her little mixer. When I worked, in a little restaurant, Bertino's restaurant in Northeast Calgary, as a child. As a child, I actually started when I was just turning 14, and I worked there till I was about 21. So I found a passion for the restaurant business there. Really, the great family, Mariani family here in Calgary, again, local family, and And so my baking really was just touching things in my mom's kitchen and playing around with things. But she would often say, mothers never kept recipes. So my sister Liviana, was awesome at writing down some of the things. And so we argue quite a bit, her and I, and we discuss things quite a bit. And I just sisterly love. And so we, her recipes were really in her mind. And so when my mom would say, I'd ask her how much you're putting in. She says, well, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And she'd say, come and feel it. And I'd get a feel for some of her baking more than how much was going into it. And so those are my vivid memories of my mom and I baking, and me going and wandering, peeking over her shoulder and touching some of the stuff that she'd slap my hand with. But it was more about, I enjoy it. It was a stress relief for me in my previous career. I'd come home, bake and cook, and that was a bit of a stress relief for me. And so in retirement now, it's a passion project for sure.
So how many different cookies do you bake?
I've been very fortunate to move beyond. I had started with five basic cookies. About a year ago, we did some test runs with them and some market analysis with the basic 5 cookies. And those were traditional, regional, and a little bit Marco-fied, if you will. I've tampered with some of my mom's recipes. I hope she would be okay with that. And so some of my friends and family enjoy the Marco-fying of some of the recipes I have. But I've really, what's really changed the game for me is me being given some free will. And so I ran into another childhood friend who's engaged with me at the Marriott Hotel at the airport, YYC. He's given me an opportunity there to actually perform in his kitchen, use his material, use his equipment. And so long as I present them to all his clients in their lobby from 5 till 7 every Monday, I'm there. It's been a wonderful opportunity to try different cookies and even various, blends of Italian cookies with some of the more traditional cooking here in Canada. So I can't name, I guess, how many I've actually tried. And over the last 6 months, I've probably tried another 20 to 30 more types of cookies. And so I change up the flavors on the website, and things ebb and flow with the season. So right now I'm in the winter season. I'm doing lots of winter traditional Italian cookies.
All right, super. So Marco, where can people find these cookies and get these cookies?
Right now, it's all online. So this is part of the business that I wasn't familiar with before. You know, the world of influencers, the world of social media. I took some inspirational coursework from a fellow out of Vancouver, Wilson Lee, for about 12 weeks. I learned, you know, the world of Instagram and building a website. So I had a digital Main Street marketing perform and help me build a website, which was marvelous. And so everything's online. Everything you can find, all my products, or most of my products that are available right now, are on my website and Instagram. You just need a direct message, and I've done numerous special events over the last year for sure, from weddings to memorials to birthdays to anniversaries to special occasions. So it's been quite engaging, and the community's been marvelous. I've been supported from all walks. Again, back to the roots, the Spalumbo's family of Bridgeland. That's where we grew up. You know, then we moved to Upper Bridgeland, Renfrew, for a while, and we had met lots of great people and friends and people in the community there. Still connected with a lot of them and the friends and family, putting in orders for some of their special events and bringing some relationship building to them.
So as you grew up, what was your favorite cookie that your mom made?
I mean, the fresh pizzellas coming off that iron that she brought from Italy, those
Yeah.
were top notch. Those were yeah, you know, you can't. And the funny part about those pizzellas, they have a little center. They have a little diamond shape, and it's a very delicate diamond. And as kids, we used to try and break around it and not break that centerpiece.
Yeah.
And so if it broke, that was, you know, it was, if you kept it, it was good luck. And if it broke it, you'd have to eat another one until you get. So we just kept gobbling more cookies, and not for the sake of good luck, for the sake of just eating more pizzellas. But those are the staple. Those are my go-to. I've learned now to shape them. I've used them as a cannoli. They made them into cones. You know, I've taken different variations of them and turned into different things. So I make cannoli cones now out of them for special events. I've done a couple of markets now and proposed some of those things there, and brought forward some of the recipes that my sister has actually written down, and changed them up a bit, and bringing those to the table slowly and introducing them into the market as they become more successful, and as they get tested through family and friends. That's part of the fun, is getting family and friends to test them and make sure they're qualified as a good cookie.
All right. So pardon me for asking, but I have to ask.
Yeah.
So just looking at you, Marco, I'm looking, here's a pretty healthy, thin guy, right? You know, growing up with your mom's baking and now
Yeah,
doing this, how do
definitely.
you keep that svelte figure of yours?
I appreciate the comment. I don't know about svelte, but yeah, I have to work at it. Let's put it that way. As a kid, I was known as a husky child. So there was actually a connection to a pair of pants that were called husky. And so yeah, I wasn't. I take better care now than I probably did back in the day. I don't eat as much as I bake, for sure. I moderate. I try to moderate. I still am a sucker for a nice piece of torta or cake, you know. But the cookies, yeah, I have to sample them, of course, and I
Yeah.
try and stick to sampling and not, you know, sneaking downstairs and stealing them out of the freezer like I did as a kid.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your background, Marco. So, you know, pardon the use of this word, but you were a bureaucrat, so to speak, at the city of Calgary for a number of years. How does somebody who works at city administration end up being a baker?
Great question. I mean, my yeah, as a trained as a civil engineering technologist, I had a great career. 34 years at the city of Calgary, and I finished the last part of it, of course, as a chief building official and a manager of a great area of building regulations. So regulatory offering that yeah, took me through my you know, wealth of knowledge around the community and friends, and that have been, again, supportive here.
Mhm.
But they yeah, it's the difference is that, you know, that, like I said before, is I'd come home. There was a stressful position in many instances. Of course, different things happen in a day, whether it's the city or any job you're working at. But my passion again came through when I'd come home, and my wife would say, "What went wrong today?" And she'd know, because I'd be in the kitchen again, right? And I'm either baking or cooking up a storm for later. But no, I always had a passion for baking, cooking. In fact, probably a year before I retired, I always thought I'd get back into it. As I walked into retirement, and I took my food handling course, my Alberta Health Services safety training. And I thought somewhere in this world of all my relationships that I have, that I would connect with someone in the restaurant business and try and help them out in whatever way I could, just because I love that community spirit they bring to the table, the local flavors they bring to the table, just the whole atmosphere around socialization and just relationship building in a restaurant, over a meal, over a dessert, over a coffee, over a liqueur.
Yeah.
Bridgeland Distillery, I use many of their products in my I'm going to do a pop-up event for them hopefully soon. And so I know I paired some of the cookies would pair nicely with the stuff, some of their mixes that I inject into some of my cookies. So yeah, there's besides, and then I did, at my previous life in the city of Calgary, I did, that was a little bit of my mother and me. Wherever there was an occasion, whether it was a Christmas, where I'd bring in my mom's cookies, I'd bring in my cookies. Then, once my mother passed. And so, I love doing that. I loved sharing that flavor and that experience of what was unique to some people that I'd never seen before, a cookie that they've never tasted before or never been exposed to. So I prided myself in that. And that was some of the, influence around starting the business. The kids, thought, my kids and family in particular, said, give it a whirl, Dad. You're retired now. It's something you have a passion for. And, luckily, and, with a lot of help from friends and family, again, they've been very supportive and kicked me going. And yeah, it's a great return.
It's funny you say that, right? Because my dad as well, years ago, he passed away years ago, but when he retired, he was in construction all his life, and when he retired, he was big and making tons of sausages, tons of salamis, you name it, right? And he often said he wished he had known, or earlier, the potential there, because he would always be, people coming to him for that stuff, right? So it kept them busy.
It's funny because my dad was a barber, and for about 5 years in Calgary here, and that he was known as Tony the Barber. And yeah, he had a shop down on 17th Avenue and about 3rd or 4th Street. In any case, I used to go with him, every whatever Saturday, and I'd tag along with him. But during the week, he'd have his friends come over and have haircuts for a much, a reduced price in his basement. My basement was always full of people getting haircuts. And so, on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night, there'd be someone coming in, knock on the back door, down they go, haircuts. But as soon as they walked in the door, the most important part of this is that as soon as they walked in the back door, my mom would put a pot of coffee on, prepare a tray of cookies, and then here we go, right? So my dad would always joke, I'd give you a $1 haircut, and I'd give you $3 or $4 of cookies and coffee and liqueurs after, because my dad wouldn't have a coffee or a cookie without a liqueur. He'd have to have a Millefiori or a Dolci or something golden color with a little sweet. And that was the relationship building, though. He never had any real brothers or sisters here in Canada, but the relationships around family that came to visit, and just the he would sponsor families coming from other countries. I remember having an Italian family from Argentina in our basement, a couple of families from Italy coming from the first grade. So they'd be living in our basement for nothing. At times, so well, they transitioned or found a place, or if they had sold a home, trying to find a place, they'd be with us. And so we always had wonderful relationships around us. It was a great family.
So what do you think, if your mom's still around, what would do you think she'd be going through her head of what you're doing?
My kids often, they're there again. They inspire me. My wife, they often would say, "Your mom would be so proud of you, right?" And just to see her faces on the card that I present, my kids branded me. They got an artist to do a rendering of her when she came from Canada in 1950. So that's the logo that we present. And so I think she'd be embarrassed. I think honestly, she didn't want any fuss around her, right? But I think hopefully she's smiling down on me and very proud of what we're bringing to the table and making people happy with one bite at a time, as I would say. And for her, it was always about warming her heart, and so she felt, you could see the glow on her face when she, someone would say, "Oh, these cookies are really good, Delia." And so I get that same kind of feeling, of course, when someone gives me any sort of feedback that they enjoy a cookie with a, and they're not a big cookie, they're little cookies that you could have more than one. So that's the nice part of her cookies. They're not the huge face size cookies, but they're elegant.
Well, I truly enjoyed the first time I had them. It was at Spalumbo's when you dropped in there that one day, and I was sitting having a coffee with Tony, and he gave us a nice little box, and truly enjoyed that with my cappuccino.
Oh my God, you enjoy it. That's the feedback I love. And so yeah, and then they pair it again. It's all about, whether you pair it with food, drink, or just, share them with friends. And I think that's the whole spirit of it. No kidding. Yeah.
All right, super. Well, thanks, Marco, for joining us today and talking about the
Thank
passion
you.
of your life.
Thank you, Mario. I really enjoyed it, and thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you again to Spolumbos for sponsoring, and I really hope you have a great day.
All right, super. That was Marco Civitarese, who is owner of Dolci di Delia. I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Italian Spotlight, brought to you today by Spolumbos. Thanks for joining us.